Welcome back to the Coming Out Happy podcast. We are your hosts, Danny and Keely, your LGBTQ plus life coaches, and we're so glad that you're here. The Coming Out Happy podcast is here to help you reconnect with your authentic self so you can absolutely crush your love life.
And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and review, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hello! Welcome back to the Coming Out Happy podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm your host, Keely, with my fave,
Danny.
What's up, Danny? How you doing today?
I'm doing well. What's up with you?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited to record this podcast with you. I love recording these. I feel like it's just our time to chat. We just get to talk about life. We roll with it on these podcasts. That's something to know if you're new here. But before we get into our topic today, there's a few things I want to talk about. You should know that every single Monday on our Instagram, we go live at 3 p.m. PST, 6 p.m. EST. So make sure you go over to our Instagram at Coming Out Happy. Give us a follow, and you'll be up to date with everything that we do because we post every single day. Another thing, we post our podcasts every single Friday. So you're listening right now. Every single Friday is a new podcast. There's so many ways to stay connected with us. And if you're really feeling like, hey, I'm getting a lot out of these podcasts, I love the posts that you put out, that is just the tip of the iceberg compared to what we talk about in our group program, Pride Amplified, where we really dive in with you and get to support you on such a high level of stepping into your most authentic self so that you can create really healthy relationships. And I just love our group right now. We are really getting to, accomplish and uncover some of these goals that they've had for so long, but they just have felt like they were doing it alone. And now they have support so that they can get there so much faster than just doing it alone. So we're absolutely here for you. We want you to be a part of that. Just send us a DM on Instagram if that sounds interesting to you and you want more details. We're happy to chat with you through there. Again, at Coming Out Happy on Instagram. But let's get into our topic for today. The 3 most common dating mistakes that we see in the LGBTQ plus community. Danny, are you ready to talk about this?
I'm ready to hear what you have for us.
I wanted to talk about this because I made so many mistakes when I was dating in the LGBTQ plus community. So many. And I wish that I could go back, but I learned a lot from it. So I thought might as well share a few stories. But let's get into the first mistake that I think happens so often is that we make up stories about the other person to make it seem like they're perfect. Turning our head away from all the red flags. I have definitely been there, have you?
Yes.
So many times.
I definitely have. There's so many times I can think about where I was so honed in on this person, completely ignoring all of the red flags, all of the times where they just did not care to message me back, did not care to show up to things. And I was just like, you know what? Let me just continue giving them the chance because I think there are really good qualities about them. But the truth is, that was a huge dating mistake. I really ignored every single red flag and I think every single relationship that I've had.
Yeah, except for me, right?
Of course. Uh-oh.
So here's what I want to say. I have a story to tell. I was dating this girl and I remember that she wasn't really the person that I wanted to date. And I kind of knew that from the start, but I had just gotten out of a really long relationship. I had been single for about 2 months. Not so hot on my part that I wasn't, working on myself. I was just looking for my next relationship, some of the codependency things that I talk about on this podcast. And I know I just wanted to be with someone. And I wanted to figure out a way to, make it work. And I was, we had met online and she didn't even live in the same state as me. So it was one of those long distance things that we try to figure out, but it sometimes doesn't always work, especially if the person's not who you want to be with. And I just liked, certain things about her. And that's all that, really was on my mind. There was a lot of things that I really didn't like, but I just turned my head because I liked the things that I liked. And that was something that I regret because when it came time to, figure out how we were moving forward in the relationship, I felt so stuck because I kind of had led her on to believe that I wanted to be with her, and I really thought I did because I convinced myself. So I made up all these stories about her, all the good times we had together and all the things I liked, but I really didn't think it was such a good fit. And that's just one story that I remember specifically. But one of the biggest mistakes that I made was I turned my head from all the red flags just because I wanted to be with someone. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know how you're relating to this, but I'm sure so many of you can definitely relate to this story. Our second common mistake is we agree with the things that people say just to get them to like you a little bit more and to seem perfect on the outside. You ever struggled with the perfectionism side of dating, Dan?
I was thinking this kind of goes in my head with when I was on dating apps and I used to kind of morph myself to get the person on the other side to say that they wanted to be with me. I would make up different qualities about myself and say that I liked the same activities that they did, and I found myself agreeing with who they were so that they found me attractive in their eyes. That was something that I did.
But were you ever worried that someone wouldn't like you if they knew your flaws?
Of course, that was the only reason why I was making up all those qualities, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. I think same for me. I struggled with feeling vulnerable, and just that defective feeling. Have I spoke about this before? I think I have, where I used to feel wrong for sharing, how I actually felt, because I didn't want anyone to think, oh my gosh, there's so many things wrong with her and, I just don't want to be with her. And that just goes to show it's so much deeper than what I was actually saying. It was so much about my self-worth and how I felt about myself. But yeah, that's mistake number 2. Agreeing with things they say just to get them to like you more. Eventually it's going to come up, right? Eventually it's going to come up where you start to see that this person's maybe not who they said they were, because stuff happens, life happens, and everything surfaces. How do you think we avoided that in our relationship?
I was at a point where I didn't need to agree with you. There are definitely things in the beginning of our relationship that we disagreed on, and it was okay.
Yeah.
Because we knew ourselves.
Also, we had a very clear understanding of going into our relationship that we just wanted to see if it was going to work. We didn't put a lot of pressure on, this has to work, and if it doesn't work, that's the end of it. It was just us trying to be together. And I think that's really special too, where you just try and see if it works, and it doesn't have to be the end game if it's not a good fit. And that's so important. Obviously, I want to be with Danny forever now. But in the beginning, you don't need that extra pressure. It adds so many different layers that are complicated and hard. And I don't want anyone to have to go through that. So I would say one of the ways to avoid that mistake is going with a clear communication, clear boundaries, and common ground of where you want the relationship to go, or you're just taking it slow. Because then if you're trying to do everything perfect, it seems like you're just trying to make it work for the long term, when reality, it's not going to work in the long term. Okay, let's get enough about mistake number 2. Let's get into one of the most common mistakes we see, number 3. You hide your true self because you don't feel that it's good enough to show someone else. This goes back to self-worth at its core. Can you talk a little bit about how you hid your true self? What did you hide?
So I think for me it was hiding how I felt in terms of everything, even moving past the stage of me pretending to be someone else to get them to move forward with me on on dating apps. When I was dating someone, I would be acting in ways that weren't aligned with me at all. So the pattern continued of me not showing my true emotions, me not standing up for what I wanted or what I needed. If someone was disregarding my boundaries or disregarding respecting me in a certain way, I was just okay with it. And I didn't stand up for myself, even though I know that there was something that was missing. I was hiding everything that I felt. I was hiding parts of me that I wanted to explore. I remember in one of my relationships a really long time ago, this is a really toxic, fun thing to talk about, I wanted to be a singer when I was young, when I was dating someone. And she told me that she wouldn't want to be with me if I ever explored that, because she was insecure of me being, if that were to ever happen, me being seen by other people. And I remember never following through with that dream until we broke up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Dang. Thank you for sharing that. That was really vulnerable.
I was just thinking on the spot. Yeah.
No, that was really vulnerable. That's really hard because you really did hide a big part of you that
I loved to sing. And the person I was dating at the time was not okay with that side of me. So I suppressed that. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna promote myself until ever, I guess. And then as soon as we broke up, I actually ran to the recording studio, made a full EP, made a full like half album, and put those songs out there, and you can now listen to them on Spotify and Apple Music.
Promo. Yeah, they're really, really good.
Isn't that an interesting thing to think about? Yeah. Just like that we hide certain parts of who we are to appease other people in our life.
Maybe this example is kind of silly, but the person that I was dating for a really long time didn't like fish, and I loved fish, but I had to pretend I didn't like fish because I convinced myself I didn't like it either because we could never go anyway. I don't know if that's not hiding a true part of myself.
No, but I mean, in like, obviously there's negotiation to be happening, compromise where you want to. But if that was important to you,
that was important to me that I had sushi,
then you let that go for someone else.
I know that was kind of a silly example compared to your actual singing career that you wanted to pursue.
Well,
but any way that it is, if it's invalidating you and what you want, like, come on, you don't have to do that. You know that. You don't have to, hide yourself for anyone. The person that you're meant to be with, you do not have to hide any part of you. You can be as free as you want. You don't have to walk on eggshells. And that's honestly how I feel in my relationship now with Dan here. Because I don't have to hide. We have open communication about how we feel. I think I just love it.
Mm-hmm.
We do argue. We're not perfect. But we're able to talk about it, and I'm able to show how I'm actually feeling. And I think when you're not able to show how you're feeling, you struggle with showing, those emotions unless you check in with yourself and work on them.
But I also want to be very open with all of you in saying that we really do have arguments. We really do have times where we're just trying to figure out our relationship. I think it's important to be talking about on this podcast because I don't ever want us to seem like it's 100% great all the time. That's BS. That's not what we're here to promote. It's like the reality of the ups and downs of a relationship and how we're working on it while working on ourselves and working on growth as a couple.
Yeah.
I love how honest we can be with all of you because this is what we would have wanted to hear before we were diving into our relationships.
Because I think so often you just see, other relationships that maybe you compare yourself to that seem perfect. And first of all, it's so bad to be comparing yourself. I have literally done that so long, and I'm like, why did I do that forever? Because no relationship is perfect. It may seem perfect on the outside, but why does that even matter? You have no idea what's going on inside people's relationships. Like Danny said, there's times where we're trying to figure it out too. And, we just take with what we know and we treat each other with kindness and openness and we're loving to each other. But of course, there's times where we want to rip each other's head off. We work together. We live together. She's my best friend. She's my, my partner. I'm in love with her. And there's so many different things that we have to navigate as well. But all that we want to show you is that it's possible for you to have a healthy relationship. And that's what we know. And we know that comes from you working on yourself and really spending that time loving who you are so that it doesn't affect you in your relationships. But yeah, I hope that this podcast was really informational. We shared a lot about our relationship as well and some of the past relationships we've been in because I think it's important to talk about it. We don't want to sugarcoat anything for you. We don't want to make it seem like relationships are awesome and amazing and they're perfect all the time. They are, awesome and great to be in, but it takes a lot of work.
And we were diving into some of the mistakes that we've seen. But I want to hear from you what mistakes and of course nothing is a real mistake because we learn from everything. Everything is a learning opportunity. But I want to learn from you. What is something that you've learned from your past relationship experiences that you won't be bringing into your future?
Yeah, send us a message on Instagram at Coming Out Happy. I want to hear it from you. And so excited to see some of your responses, and hope you loved today's episode. We're here every Friday chatting with you all, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and we can't wait to see you. Thank you so much for listening. We love you all, and if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget, make sure you leave us a 5-star review or rating if you loved today's episode, and we'll see you all very soon.